and welcome to the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zack Eichten. Let's get into the matchup recaps right away this week. All right, in game number one, we had the former roommates of John Stevens and the Rock Plopstas up against Zack Eichten and the Gluten Freaks. The Freaks were able to get on top in this matchup as they took the win 140.38 to 83.4. This was the Freaks' biggest victory margin of the season with a margin of plus 56.98. Zach moves to 10-6 all-time against John, and in a club first has double-digit wins over another team in the league all-time. Pretty good day for the Gluten Freaks overall. But let's talk about the Plopstas first this week. The Rock Plopstas scored the second lowest score of the week at 83.4 points. And quite frankly, it falls on his Packers players hardest. Aaron Rodgers scored only 3.8 points against a tough Bucs defense. That Bucs defense scored 20 points on Noel's bench. Plus, Aaron Jones only had 10 carries on the day, which is very low for a running back of his caliber. Additionally, Rodgers only completed 16 passes, of which only 6 were to Devontae Adams. Definitely not a great week for the Packer Pack team. What is also concerning is Miles Sanders exiting only after 9 carries on the day. Now, he did get 118 yards on those 9 carries, but still not great. If Sanders is down long-term, this team could be in a lot of trouble. Robinson had a tough week against Carolina, but we knew that. Apparently, Carolina's pretty good against the pass. I remember DeAndre Hopkins a few weeks ago was held at low points as well playing them. One bright spot was the top defense of the week in Pittsburgh, scoring 19. If they can keep up that level of production on this team and the rest of their players show up, that'll be a solid part of this team moving forward. But let's move on to the Gluten Freaks. The Gluten Freaks bounced back after 2 straight weeks under 100 points with a score of 140.38. This came despite a pretty low performance from number 3 quarterback Josh Allen. Allen struggled against the Kansas City defense with only 14 of 27 completion rate, but he did get 2 touchdowns on those. David Johnson, Myles Gaskin had good weeks, and Hopkins and Graham struggled a bit. But the real story for this team was traded for players coming through. Julio Jones scoring 29.7 points, and Kenyon Drake finally having a breakout week, scoring 2 touchdowns and 28.4 points. One of them on a 69-yard run. That definitely put the Freaks in a top scoring position in week 6. Finally, Dolphins just had a good defensive stand, allowing 0 points to the Jets, and overall, really solid performance, and one to hopefully repeat for the Freaks. Let's move on to match number 2, where we have, oh God, yikes. We have the mangled spring chickens versus worse than trash. Man, this is a historic worst performance from Brennan Swan's team, losing 114.54 to 53.98. Yikes. Let's talk about the chickens first so we can get that out of the way. Honestly, just an abysmal score. 2 players scored more than 10 points. 0 players scored more than 11 points. Those 2 top scorers were Ben Roethlisberger at 10.98 and CeeDee Lamb at 10.9. Luckily, CeeDee got some garbage time receptions because this team almost didn't clear 50. Now, we've talked about it on this program before, but Brennan's team really is the epitome of boom or bust. We saw a boom in week 4 with 192 points. Well, this is the flip side of that. Really, this team had no bright spots. Not even a bench had saving grace with, missed player opportunity. Burrow scoring the highest at 16.72. Really just terrible week for the Chickens. One that hopefully won't repeat, and we can put it in the rearview mirror as Brennan gets his studs back from buys and injuries. Now, let's move on to Tony Townsend and the worse than trash team on the end. Tony actually set a record. It was his biggest victory margin this week, which beats out his previous record of 51 in week 11 of last year against the then named underachievers. This week, they actually had a great win. They didn't choose the right quarterback. Yeah, Herbert was out, but Teddy had a rough go of it. Ton of players on the waiver wire could have played better, but Clyde had one last great showing before Le'Veon Bell can come in and potentially cause chaos with the touches there. One thing Tony got really lucky on was that Brennan had a really bad week, and it didn't cost him the game when Cam Akers, who was reported to have a bigger role this week, was only in the game for 2% of snaps and without a single touch. If I'm Tony Townsend, odds are he's not going to be played again for a while. Rather have him on the bench for safety. Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore did fine, but the big story was the top played wide receiver of the week of Justin Jefferson, who scored 35.1 points for worse than trash. He's now the number 7 receiver in PPR formats on the year, and should be a plug-and-play guy moving forward based on this production value. One honestly just tough part to see is DeAndre Swift on the bench for 25.8 points. He could have been in there instead of Akers, but it doesn't really matter because Tony still moves to 3-3. In game number 3, we had not trading Lamar against Glass Bones and Paper Skin. Josh was able to win this week, scoring 123.84 to 97.28. This was the second highest score from Glass Bones, however, so bit of an above average week for the losing team too. Let's talk about Glass Bones here first. Was it a winning week? No. Was it a losing week? Yes. Did they score over 100 points? No. But did they have a fun time? Unknown. Who's to say? But what we do know is that Cam Newton posted the highest quarterback score for this team since week 2. George Kittle scored the most of any tight end in week 6, and that's really good. As well as Younghoe Koo posted the highest kicking score of the year so far of any team. All this is really great news for Glass Bones moving forward. What's still frustrating for this team? Running backs. Devin Singletary and the Bills struggled heavily against Kansas City, and Darrell Henderson and the Rams struggled against a tough San Fran defense. Both these players are due for a big week. Just wasn't in week 6 for this squad, but the building blocks are there, and don't count out Glass Bones and Paper Skin yet. Not trading Lamar, on the other hand, may be off the potential fraud list, as the team posted above 120 points in this week's win. They still have the second fewest points against this season, but this was a good score and a winning score. So it starts at the top with Lamar Jackson finally doing Lamar things and scoring 28.24 points against Philadelphia, including running for 108 yards and a touchdown. Incredible performance there. A.J. Brown had another big game with 2 touchdowns, and even Hayden Hurst got a garbage time touchdown against the Vikings. Cardinals defense played very well against Dallas, who really looked lost without Dak. And actually, I want to talk about one concerning player from Dallas on the squad this week, and it was Ezekiel Elliott. Elliott lost 2 fumbles against Arizona and was pulled for a few drives to get his head right. He's going to have to get that fumbling problem under control, or else Josh could potentially lose a starting running back if he can't get that under control. Either way, Josh did great in week 6. Maybe you aren't a fraud after all. All right. Let's go over to game number 4, where we have the closest match in league history, where Noel and Randy's Donuts were able to win by 0.46 points over Thomas and the Dog Sniffers. Man, what a heartbreaker for the Sniffers, man. So let's talk about them first. Deshaun Watson was electric. He was the best quarterback scorer in week 6 at 32 points. He threw 4 touchdown passes in a heartbreaking loss against Tennessee. Ronald Jones continues to play very well, getting 25.1 points and 2 touchdowns on 23 carries. James Conner also posting pretty nice scores for this squad with 16.7 points on his win over Cleveland. Ravens also great. Plug and play him every week as long as you have him. Now let's go to the heartbreaking part of this team. Greg Zuerlein missing a field goal that would have won the game. Travis Kelce fumbling, losing the game-winning points for Thomas. T.Y. Hilton now off the roster, catching only 1 of his 5 targets. Anywhere in that lineup, that point difference could have been made up. But at the end of the day, fantasy really is a game of luck. And it was this week. It was Noel's turn for a little bit of it. Let's talk about them now. Randy's Donuts, going back to their championship team name, finally had their luck turn around. With Kamara and McCaffrey and Michael Thomas and Dak Prescott out, he still eked out a win. Mike Davis was a little bit held in check, and Joe Mixon scored a Joe Mixon score. But Trey Burton was a shining light, barely missing that top tight end score of week 6. The Giants defense played well as well for this squad. Really, the only concerning piece was Shenault, who scored 2.6 points. But, bye weeks hit this team, and you got to play someone in that flex spot. So congrats on the win, Noel, and congrats on making it to 2-4. Finally, let's get into the Pawn Stars Game of the Week, where we had the Google team names and the Gruesome Grinders in the South Dakota Bowl. Now, the names take the title and move to 5-1, the number 1 standing team after winning this game, 129.82 to 108.5. Now, Sam made a trade to get Philip Lindsay on the team right before game started, which turned out to be a good idea, as Damian Harris, who would have likely been starting in this lineup, scored only 3.8 points on the bench of the Gruesome Grinders. But the real star of this team continues to be Kyler Murray. Scored 28.92 points, throwing 2 touchdowns and rushing for a third. Jonathan Taylor played well. Fuller and Cooper continued to play outstanding. Really, the only player that was severely disappointing this week was Juju Smith-Schuster with a score of 1.6 in that flex position. This team is playing extremely well through week 6 and is the number 1 scoring team in the league by about 1.5 points. Drew and the Gruesome Grinders had an okay score, 108.5. They were being propped up by Derrick Henry, though, who scored 39.4 points on 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. The rest of the team was fine. Mahomes got 20, which isn't great for him. Montgomery got 11.7, average for him. Hunt was a bit of a disappointment at 6.7, but really the entire Cleveland team was just disappointing this week. And Tyreek Hill disappointed at only 4 points. Claypool, though, he got a 16-point score. Just really wasn't a good enough performance to overcome the juggernaut that apparently is the Google team names. Now, let's head on over to the fun fact of the week. This week, our fun fact of the week is looking at average points for all of the teams of 2019 to 2020 through 6 weeks. So follow me here. Of the 10 teams, 7 of our teams are averaging more points through 6 weeks than they did in 2019. Those teams are in order of biggest change: Zach, John, Drew, Sam, Tony, and then Thomas and Noel. So that means there's 3 teams scoring less points through 6 weeks, which are Brennan, Lucas, and Josh. You can see from the graphic here the exact breakdowns, but some of these are pretty significant, with Zach topping out at scoring 116% of his 2019 score in 2020. Pretty neat, and hopefully we can get the other 3 teams to get those scores up as well. Trade alerts this week. At the time of filming, we've had 1 trade of Jared Cook for $11 fab dollars. We'll have to stay vigilant for more trades, but that's what we have as of recording. All right, I think now is a good time to head over to the Mahowald Minute. All right, hey guys, Zach and Fitz here with the Mahowald Minute. It's really the best minute-long segment of the Rathole, I think, of programs within a program. The Mahowald Minute has to be one of the top segments of programs on the Rathole in Rathole or league history, for sure. I'm just glad to be able to fill in for Drew this week, and be part of the Mahowald Minute canon, the Mahowald Minute history. Glad to lend my voice when needed to fill in on this Mahowald Minute. Thanks to Drew for letting me fill in. When I was thinking about what I want to talk about, there's just so many ideas of good ideas for this minute-long segment. So I wanted to focus on something that I'm super excited about that's coming out in a few weeks, and it's the league. Welcome back, and thanks, Drew. Now, I know what many of you are wondering. We have 10 people in this league. Zach hosts the show, so that leaves 9. But we've only had 8 interviews. So who are we missing? Well, I am here to say we finally have the last interview with a team league member. So here goes an interview with Brennan Swan. Welcome, Brennan Swan, to your interview on the Rathole with our live studio audience.
Fitz, let's go.
It's great to have you here. So, Brennan Swan, team owner of the Spring Chickens.
Yeah.
How are you? How are things?
No, I'm good. Just a little recap of my day. Back in the classroom. So
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Back in Minneapolis then.
Yep. Yeah. Just moved back from St. Cloud. I was at the St. Cloud VA for the last 8 weeks for an internship. So nice to be back.
What are you doing?
I'm shaking my protein powder.
For the audience at home, I look over and Jamie's just staring me in the eyes, shaking a drink. All right, whatever.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stare at you.
Okay, thanks. So, Big Jackal, let's talk about fantasy, your fantasy career.
Yeah.
Got to get into it here.
how many fantasy leagues are you a part of?
Right now,
Yeah, right now.
this one.
This one.
That's it.
Really?
All my time, just this league. We had a grad school league, and I was commissioner last year, and I just kind of said I didn't want to do it this year, so no fantasy league. So, just this
So you
one.
quit?
Yeah.
Were you intimidated by my commissionering?
Yes. I mean, at one point last year, I thought about like, hey, I'll do write-ups, like you did those last year.
Yeah.
Like I tried to do one, I got through like 2 sentences. I'm like, no. Like I'm not doing write-ups. You guys don't deserve this. This league isn't that good anyway. Like, So no, I didn't do it this year.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah.
This league is, I think, where pretty much everybody in the league devotes most of their fantasy time towards. So I'm glad that you're invested in our league too. It's great to see.
Yeah.
I love to see it. So let's talk about your fantasy career. You're a former champion of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League. So tell me about that feeling. What's that? What was that euphoria like back in 2017 when you won?
It was, it was great. We weren't playing for anything at the time.
No.
But just to kind of have those bragging rights for a year, I do actually have that old trophy. It's up at my house. Just the feeling of winning and being better than everyone else was really nice. And it's kind of been a long time since I've actually been able to experience that. So,
yeah. So we got to talk about this year. So coming into week 6, when we're recording this, we're in the middle of week 6. So we don't know the final score of your week 6 game yet. But coming into week 6, you had the highest points for, but you were 2-3. So talk to me a little bit about that. What's the deal with your losing record despite having the most points this year?
I think it's partly due to just how good our league is. I feel like over the years we've expanded, obviously, but I feel like you up and down the board, pretty much everybody can be competitive on it at any point. And looking at my schedule, I played some tough teams.
Mm-hmm.
I played you, I played Sam, played John, and just those 3 alone, you guys are pretty solid. So it's not to discredit.
Yeah, we saw Sam being a solid team this year.
He had a tough year last year, but it's nice to see somebody who's at the bottom of the league last year having a good start to the year.
Yeah,
and so it's nice to have balance in the league, right?
Absolutely. So, obviously you lost to me when you put up 143 points. Yeah. And that's always tough. It's looking like week 6 here is going to be a loss.
Yes.
Going into Monday night, you have a score of 43 points.
Yeah.
To Tony's 80-some, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
He's still playing.
He's still
playing well.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
He's got some guys that can play. 40. What the heck?
I don't know, man. But so it's looking like you're gonna probably drop to 2-4. In your mind, is it tougher to lose by 13 when you put up 143, or is this probable less than 60 point score tougher than that one in your view?
In terms of just overall like season and team, losing when you have 40 points is a horrible sign. It's a horrible sign for weeks to come. Like that's what my team's capable of right now. It's horrible.
Apparently, yes.
I think it's harder to lose when you feel like you had a good week and you did everything you can, and the guy you're playing is just better than, has a better team than you. I'd rather. Sometimes I feel like, man, I'd rather just get wrecked and know it and just be like, oh, I just got wrecked versus, man, I played really well and I just lost that one and I shouldn't have. I could have beaten every other team in the league. And I put up 140.
Tough.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's always tough.
Yeah.
So, something about your team that I really love this year is your running backs. I want to talk about those for a little bit. So, early in the season, I believe in the middle of games week 1, you and I made a trade. Kenyon Drake and a 4th rounder for Chris Carson.
Yeah.
Now, I walked away from that trade. Everybody walked away from that trade going, man, Zach really just swindled Brennan. Getting a pick out of him as well as, sending a worse back, quote unquote, just due to the draft position of Drake versus Carson in a standard draft.
That's true. Yeah.
And so far that has just turned out horribly for me, and that has turned out wonderful for you. And Dalvin Cook is, prior to his injury, was the number 2 running back in our league format, just after Alvin Kamara.
Right.
So, man, tell me, how does it feel to have consistently solid running backs?
It's been really nice, and one thing that's really burned me over the years is not having running back depth.
Yep.
And even this year, having kind of 3 solid number 1 running backs, you feel like you have depth, but then each one of those guys has had an injury at a point in time.
Right.
And so it's still like I beg to answer the question of, do I have enough depth? And I still don't know if I have enough running back depth with the injuries, but it
Right.
has been nice just to have 3 consistent scorers on a weekly basis.
Yep.
So
I think, Carson has had injury problems in the past. Mostert's having some injury problems this year. Dalvin has some injury problems. But I think out of everybody in the league, you have the most consistent 3-back starting set when they're healthy.
I appreciate that.
Noel has a top 2 starting backs,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
how can you compete with both McCaffrey and Kamara? So that's
Who the heck let them get those guys, man?
apparently us.
Yes.
us as a collectively let him get those guys. But I want to talk about your wide receivers then. So
Yeah.
you've been scoring very well in your running back category
Mhm.
when your guys are healthy, I should say. And your wide receivers, you have 2 guys in the league that are probably the epitome of boom or bust players, in my opinion.
Oh,
You have Mike Evans,
Yep.
and you have Odell Beckham Jr. Now, we saw a week where they boomed, when you scored 192 points,
that was awesome.
which was fun to see.
Mhm.
We see now a week where they have busted in week 6 here.
Yeah.
Talk to me, what's your fantasy management style when you have your 2 keepers are boom and bust guys?
It's getting tough, and sometimes I think are these guys worth trading? Honestly, it's frustrating. I'd rather honestly at this point have consistent receivers that put up decent numbers than guys that one week they get you 40 and one week they get you 4.
Right.
So that's getting a little bit frustrating because our league is so good. It feels like everybody's putting up triple digits every week, and getting 140, even 150. I mean, we got some good teams. So I'm kind of getting to the point where I got to reevaluate and say, do I need different guys?
Yeah, I think one thing about your team just overall is, and I've said this before to you in the past, is that your team encapsulates boom or bust.
Yeah, it really
It
does.
really does, because
yeah.
192, fantastic score. 58, whatever you end up at, is what the projections are saying as of now.
Yeah.
It's just not an ideal situation. I know that's frustrating for you.
Yeah.
But one piece of your fantasy style that has always been very good, it seems like, is choosing the right defense to play.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Yeah,
defenses
sure.
here. So
Why not?
in 2019, you were the only team who had greater than 10% of your points coming from your defense. This year, you're on pace to have over 10% of your score come from defenses again.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How do you pick those teams up?
I kind of got lucky last year in the draft. I mean, I Patriots, good team historically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had a lot of success, and I just picked them, and they ended up putting up some big numbers. To the point where people thought about maybe we should get rid of defenses, like Brennan's doing real well, right? So I got some luck, and then this year, we're getting to the point when the draft we're picking defenses again, and obviously I didn't keep the Patriots as a keeper.
Right.
I'm like, guys, you're really gonna hate me for this pick that I make, and just sure enough, I got the Patriots again, doing well.
They are doing very well.
Probably one of the best players I had this week, to be honest. So, yeah,
I think it might have been.
yeah.
Unless CD Lamb really takes off.
I hope he
So,
has a good
Yeah.
night. Doesn't matter.
But okay, so you're a huge defensive specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Would you personally ever want to consider making the switch over to independent defensive players, or do you like that team defense aspect?
I mean, given my success with the Patriots, I like the team defense, but I'm always up for trying new things.
Okay.
Right? I mean, our league, man, it's unreal. And like we have a lot of
It
fun.
is fake.
Yes. It's not real football being
It's-
played, right?
It is
Yeah, we're not-
fantasy football.
It is. So it is unreal per se. But no, I would be open to that. I think it, as I told you, I'm in school. It's sometimes hard to like keep up with all the group texts that we get.
Yes.
But
Yes,
like
it is.
it would be fun to try it and just because there's a lot of good defensive players out there, and Why can't they share some of the fantasy football glory? Right?
I agree.
Yeah.
What great, well put.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah.
So let's talk about your trades.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Obviously, we've had you on Trade Talks quite a few times over
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks. Tell me about your trading strategy just overall, and are you looking to make more moves this season, trying to make a championship run?
Well, I'll tell you this for starters. I didn't really make a trade until this year. But the analogy that I'll give you with me making trades is kind of like when I turned 21 and started drinking. Like once I started drinking, I had to just keep drinking and have fun, right? And that's kind of how the trades have been going, right? You make a trade, and that feels really good. Like, oh man, I think I won that trade. Let's do another.
Yes.
Most of the trades I made this year haven't been good.
I would disagree because you got Tariq Cohen out of me. You got Chris Carson. Chris Carson was a real trade.
Sure.
I know the trade with Alexander Madison didn't work great in the short term.
Right.
But when the rest of your team did as bad as they did this week, it wouldn't have mattered if you scored 30 points. So it wouldn't have really made much of a difference.
I just add that it's not bad to have handcuffs. I talked to Drew about this. Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to have that number 2 in case your guy goes down, as we know Dalvin's injury prone, so it's kind of nice to have. Yeah.
So, thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
We got one last question. Every week we have an interview, we do this last question. You know what it is?
I'm gonna let you ask it. No.
It's a would you rather question.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Of course, it's the would you rather question.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, all right, Big Lobster.
All right.
Here we go.
Yep.
Would you rather never get to play a defense again,
Okay.
or guarantee Dalvin Cook will be out for 3 games this season?
Rather never play a D again.
Everybody else gets to. You don't get to play defense.
Okay.
Or Dalvin he's out for 3 games this season.
But he plays the rest.
He'll play the other. Well, it'd be including his bye. He'd play the other 12 games.
Dude, I love my defense, but I love Dalvin. There's something about Dalvin that he's like a childhood friend to me. So I'd probably go with I'd probably do never play a defense again.
Wow.
To be honest, I love Dalvin every week, man. Man, that guy has been a workhorse for me. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really something special.
Yeah.
Trade me Dalvin.
I'm gonna. You know what? I'll think about it, Big Rooster.
All right. Thanks, Big Ken.
You
And
bet.
thanks for joining me on this week's episode of the Rathole, and we'll catch you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Brennan, for a great interview, and I'm happy you finally made it onto the Rathole for your official interview. Now, before we get into game previews, let's take a calming look at this week's rankings. I hope you're feeling zen as always after seeing those rankings. So let's get into the matchup previews. In game number 1, we have the number 3 ranked Gluten Freaks against number 10 ranked Worse Than Trash. Now, last year, Zach and Tony faced off actually 3 times. Zach went 2-1 on that series, but Zach was one of Tony's 3 wins in regular season last year. And Tony will be looking to repeat that single win from last year against the Gluten Freaks. In week 7, Tony will likely be playing Justin Herbert, hopefully the starting quarterback for this team moving forward after so many quarterback troubles. But Tony's young guns and Clyde and Swift will be up against established backs of David Johnson and Josh Jacobs. Tony's young guns of DJ Moore and Stephon Diggs will be up against established receivers of Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins. Where's the advantage for Tony? Well, it could come into flex play as well as tight end play. Hockenson and McLaurin could be the pivotal advantage this team needs. Plus, both teams' normal defenses are on bye this week, so both will be looking to the waiver wire to get a good defense. It's really anyone's game at this point. So let's head on down to game number 2, where we have the number 2 ranked Rock Plopstas up against the number 1. That's right, number 1 ranked Google team names, Sam Olsen. I, for one, didn't see that one coming, but congrats, Sam. You definitely earned it this year. All time between these two, John leads 8-2. So, man, this is going to be a great game. Murray, Rodgers, these two electric quarterbacks should be fun to watch. The question will be, which team really can weather the bye and injuries more this week? The names will be without Jonathan Taylor, potentially Melvin Gordon out too. The Plopstas will be without Nick Chubb and probably Miles Sanders as well. But Darren Waller will be back. So either way, these two teams are two of the best in the league this year. And this is going to be a really fun and exciting matchup. In game number 3, we have the number 9 ranked Glass Bones and Paper Skin against number 7 ranked Dog Sniffers. On paper, Thomas and others may assume that he has a slam dunk, at least based on the average scores of this year. But roll back the tape, and the last time Lucas was guaranteed a loss on this program, he scored over 140 points. So who's to really say? The biggest factor for Lucas is Devin Singletary's better matchup this week against the Jets. But in a fun twist, Thomas will actually not be able to play his 2 tight end set this week as normal, but Lucas will. Andrews is on bye, while Jonnu Smith and George Kittle will likely be in the lineup for Glass Bones. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how Thomas fares against the 2 tight end set this week. In game number 4, we have the number 5 tied ranked Gruesome Grinders versus number 4 ranked Not Trading Lamar. The namesake of that team is on bye this week, as are the rest of the Ravens. So backup quarterback Daniel Jones will be in for NTL. Speaking of byes, Dan Bailey will be on bye for the Grinders. A tough loss for him, I know, as well as the Colts defense, who've been playing outstanding this year. I, for one, am excited to see who in the former roommates lineup will go off. It'll definitely be a battle, as each of these teams have a solid set of running backs and receivers to carry them to victory. Now let's head on over to the Pong Stars Game of the Week. Game of the week, we have 2 of our 2 and 4 teams. The number tied ranked for 5th, Randy's Donuts versus the precipitously dropping number 8 ranked Spring Chickens in the Big Man Bowl. They'll be playing for the big man himself. And it's a beautiful trophy. Just take a look at it. Now, after Noel had the smallest victory margin of all time in our league, and Brennan had his lowest score of all time, both of these teams will be looking to prove the haters wrong in a game that really could actually have playoff implications due to the 2 low records for these teams. For Randy's Donuts, Kamara and potentially Michael Thomas will be back, almost putting this team at full strength. Mike Davis will be posed for a big week. The biggest missing pieces, McCaffrey, yeah, obviously, duh. But even more importantly, Rodrigo Blankenship, all aboard the Blankenship, but he's on bye, sad. For the Spring Chickens, Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison will be on bye. But he will be getting potential MVP Russell Wilson and also Chris Carson back. Jerick McKinnon will be the lead back for San Fran as Mostert is injured. And we all know Evans and Beckham can break out for massive games at any point. There's really no way of knowing who's going to come out on top of this matchup. It should be a fantastic game. Now, let's head on over to the Pong Stars Pick'em. Welcome, folks, to the Pong Stars Pick'em for week number 7. Let's get into this week's picks. We're going to start out with game number 1, which is the Gluten Freaks versus Worse Than Trash. Let's start with John Stevens. Who are you taking in, the Gluten Freaks versus Worse Than Trash?
The Gluten Freaks, because of who they're playing.
Accurate. All right, Noel, on to you.
Yeah, I'm going with Zach as well, and he's my lock this week.
All right, Sammer?
I've got the Gluten Freaks big against Worse Than Trash.
Love to see
Huge.
that.
Somebody say it's a big cock.
Calm down. All right.
Oh.
Some could say that.
Some could say that.
Oh, there it is.
Thomas, who do you got in Gluten Freaks versus Worse Than Trash?
Similar to John here. I got the Gluten Freaks to win simply because you're playing someone who is worse than trash. And that's my lock.
All right, wonderful. Drew Mahowald?
Yeah, whatever everybody else said.
All right. Let's get this moving. Obviously, I'm going to take the Gluten Freaks. They're a bunch of studs.
Sweet.
So, yeah. All right, let's go on to game number 2, where we have the Rock Plopstas against the Googled team names. All right, let's start with Noel this time.
I'm going with the team name that's named after somebody else in the league. I'm going with the Rock Popsters this week.
All right, love to see it. Samuel, in your own match.
I got to roll with my guys. Google team names.
All right, Thomas, who you got in this matchup?
As much as I want to say the Rock Plopsters, it's going to be Google team names for me.
Woo!
All right, Drew Mahowald, who you got?
I got the Rock Plopsters, and that's my lock this week.
Wow.
I think John's team is loaded, and he's due for a big breakout, high point scoring week. So I got
scored 180 against me. What do you want?
Dude, it's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen.
It hasn't
again.
happened in a long time. It's been a cold streak.
All right, I'm hopping in here. Last week I went against the Google team names. And I lost that one. I can't bet against them again. Going with the Google team names. It's going to be a close match. Going to be a close match. And John, over to you. Your own match.
I'm taking the Rock Plopsters. I think I caught Sam on a good week here. It's not so much about I'm terrified of Sam's team, to be honest. I can't understand it, and things I can't understand terrify me, but he's on a couple of buys this week and some shitty running backs that are going to have to play. So I like my chances this week.
All right, let's move on to match number 3, where we have Glass Bones and Paper Skin against the Dog Sniffers. Sam, we'll start with you.
I've got Thomas in this one. I got the Dog Sniffers. I like what they did last week, even though they couldn't pull it out against Noel. I think they've got a shot here this week against Lucas.
Thomas, I know you couldn't pull out a Noel, but what do you think about this one?
You could have what?
That's what Sam
Pull out
said.
of Noel.
I said pull it out against Noel.
I'll have you know,
Wow.
I pulled that out of Noel many times. I feel like I manifested my team into a loss last week by betting against them. So this time I'm going to bet with my team. I've got the Dog Sniffers to win.
I'm still uncomfortable. Holy cow. Happened.
Very, very uncomfortable with the energy I created in the studio tonight. Sorry, boys. Let's start with, let's go over to Drew Mahowald, the Last Bones versus Dog Sniffers.
I got the Dog Sniffers. Showed some great fight last week. It's gonna carry over.
Yeah, I'm going with the Dog Sniffers as my lock over the Glass Bones and Paper Skin. Can't bet against these guys again. They had a tough week. Actually, I went for them last week, so maybe they won't disappoint me this time.
Same.
John, who you got in Glass Bones versus Dog Sniffers?
Dog Sniffers.
All right, Noel.
That might be more fun to say than the Rock Plopsters.
It's very fun. That's a good one.
It's not about the size of the
Sniffers.
sniffer and the dog. It's about the size of the dog and the sniffer. So I'm going with the Dog Sniffers this week.
All right.
Wow.
Like to hear the consensus there?
The big sweep there on that
That's
one
a
as well.
surefire loss for the Dog Sniffers.
Correct. I score 30 points guaranteed.
Let's go then to game number 4. We have the former roommates of Drew Mahowald and the Gruesome Grinders against Josh and Not Trading Lamar. Drew, who do you got in this matchup?
I got my squad. the GG's highest points against in the league so far. That is bound to change at some point, right? So, gonna go with my squad here.
All right.
I need violin, Drew.
I'm gonna go. I have to bet against you, Drew. I think you got some bad luck this year, Josh. Josh.
I do have some bad luck this year. That is a fact.
That is a fact. So, and Josh actually might not be on the fraud list anymore. So I'm going with not trading Lamar this week, even though Lamar will not be playing. John Stevens, who you got?
I got Drew Mahowald, lock. I think Lamar being out, he finally seemed to actually put up a productive week, and then Lamar's out now. But Drew's team is very solid. Like you mentioned, the points against, his record doesn't reflect his team. I think it's going to be the GGs this week.
All right, Noel, who you got?
Drew.
Okay. All right, Sam.
I have got the gruesome grinders narrowly, but I think Drew's team gets it done.
All right, and then finally, Thomas, who you got in this one?
I've got not trading Lamar. I like Drew's team better, but the golden horseshoe is right up Josh's ass right now.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. All right. Let's go on to the Pawn Stars game of the week. Then matchup number 5. We have 2 of our 2 and 4 teams. We have Randy's Donuts versus the Spring Chickens. Thomas, we'll start with you.
Brendan said he was in win mode, but he is clearly in lose mode. So I've got Randy's Donuts to win.
All right, fair enough. Drew, who do you got in this matchup?
I got Randy's Donuts. Noel's team is still the best in the league, even with everything that's happened. And so he's going to start winning some matchups moving forward here.
Yeah, I'm definitely going with Randy's Donuts. The rebrand or double brand, however you want to go back to your old name, definitely helped out. Got that little bit of luck. Definitely going to get it.
Added a little bit of luck.
Literally the tiniest amount of luck that you could have.
John, we'll go over to you.
Yeah, probably the biggest game of the year so far. Massive playoff implications. I'm taking Noel. I think it was an absolute disgrace to change your name when you won the championship in the first place. So this is the good move, and I think it's going to give you some good juju coming your way.
Thomas, to be fair, you
juju's
could have
on
had
Sam's
4
team.
more yards, and you could have lost by 0.06. So take it as you
I
want.
guess.
Noel, who you got in your own matchup?
Yeah, I'm taking myself. I'm getting Kamara and finally Michael Thomas back. We'll see how that works out for me. But like you guys were saying, the rebrand or the rebrand or the branding, whatever.
The unbrand.
The new brand.
Old brand.
Hoping that some good luck starts rolling this way. So, however, I told Swan it's going to be a high scoring week. It's going to be a total of at least 350 combined.
Yeah, because you're getting 300.
I'll take the under.
All right, that's outrageous.
I'll take the under.
That is outrageous. Yeah, definitely taking the under.
You got to get 100 to 1 odds to go over on that.
Sam, who you got? Final guess here.
I've got the throwback to the Randy's Donuts. I think they're gonna play well. I think they narrowly beat Swan, but I still think they beat them. I think they beat the Spring Chickens.
And that is 3 sweeps on the week.
Take a drink every time Sam says narrowly.
Also, that's a lock. I don't know if I said that. Sorry.
Yeah, you all right?
Narrowly winning with
all
the
right.
lock.
Narrow with my lock. It's an interesting play. Interesting play.
It's almost like you've seen the future.
Drew, who is your lock?
Yeah.
Huh?
Who is your lock?
John.
Yeah.
The Rock Lobsters.
The Rock Lobsters.
All right. 2 things. One, we do actually have a bonus question this week.
Yes.
And one that we did enough research for it to actually count as a bonus point before going into this week. So, bonus starting with John Stevens. Is Mike Evans going to get more than 5 targets in week 7?
I am going to say yes.
All right. John says yes. No. Will Mike Evans get more than 5 targets?
Who do they play?
Vegas, I believe.
Rapid fire. Come on.
Yeah, this is supposed to be quick.
No, I'm going to say Gronk gets 7 targets, though.
That wasn't the question, but okay.
Cool.
Wait, did you say yes
Fun
or
fact.
no? You
I said no.
All right.
He
calm
said,
down.
nah.
Listen
All right.
with your ears, not your
Sam.
mouth.
Sam, who you got? Or yes or no?
Mike Evans gets more than 5 targets.
Mike
Yes.
Evans gets more than 5 targets. Sam says
Narrowly.
Thomas.
He gets 6. He gets 6. Narrowly.
Drink.
Yes, Ronald Jones gets all the targets.
That wasn't the question either.
Would you like to submit an official answer?
Thomas or Drew?
No, he does not get it.
Yeah. Will Mike Evans get more than 5 targets this week?
No.
No. And I'm going with
No.
no. There's no way he gets more than 5 targets this week. All right. Remember, that's a bonus point now.
Will Tony get to 100?
No.
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 I hope not. But I want to remind
He is projected
everybody.
100.47 this week.
Smash
Perfect.
the under.
Want to remind everybody what we're now playing for.
Will Tony play the right receiver and Justin Jefferson? No.
No.
We're playing for the Rocco Memorial Trophy. This is Rocco.
Rocco.
I'm so happy that Rocco was able to join us now, officially memorialized in league canon, and we'll be playing for this. Rocco is hopefully going to get a little name tag right there, so we can remember Rocco moving forward. But
Will he
that's
have his
what we're
Twitter
playing for in the Pick'em.
Rocco is a
folks
giant
who aren't
cock.
playing
Right.
this year, but next year, if you want to join in, Rocco could be yours.
Rocco.
So try to take
Well,
home
it's-
try to take home the hardware this year. I'm excited. It's going to be a good time. Thanks, boys, for joining me this week.
Is his Twitter handle going to be on there?
At Skullbanger, probably not.
Ah.
See ya. Thanks, Pick'em players. I am doing poorly this year so far, but I'm hoping to make that up. We have plenty of time left in the season. Remember, Pick'em, we play all the way through playoffs, so that's really where I'm hoping to make up some ground is by then. Hoping to take home the hardware for this year as well. Now, that's all we have for this week's episode of The Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zack Eichten. And remember to vote.